and perhaps I'll touch base on the understanding of the landscape of intellectual property rights, particularly in terms of how to patent an idea in any of the countries. Particularly, let's start with India and then the processing in which a patent should be filed, because most of the folks who are coming to us or who have been working with other people over the years have no cognizance between the difference between a patent, utility, design. Many of the cases, only a design registration is done, but it is said to the person or the entity or the enterprise that it's a patent. Now, perhaps what is important here in 2025 and beyond, stating the landscape of today, it is all to do with pooling. And pooling doesn't mean that uh, anything and everything begins with MVP. That is a model whereby you need to have a viable product or produce or process, apparatus, machines, systems, and particularly the landscape of IoT is gaining new momentum in the current landscape. And just if I have to touch base on the topic of how to patent an idea in India, particularly it would be from the standpoint view of submitting a provisional patent application. Now, there is always a discussion that whether to go ahead with the patent searching process, which is includes prior art search, patentability search, and stuff to determine whether whatever you are trying to do has viability in terms of the aspects of intellectual property rights from the protection point of view. What is important right now is to appreciate the fact of trade secret, because if you see any of these enterprises, whether even they are solving a very miniature problem, and the miniature problem could be just delivery of food, delivery of essentials at a click of a button, which is through this interface of handheld devices. So it's very, very important to understand, appreciate uh, the acquaintance of the handheld device for the users, and the users are able to do that seeing the UI. And what is important here is to understand the IoT aspect. And also, you won't see loads of companies filing patents, but you will see loads of companies filing trademark application just to create a portfolio. And particularly the company which are listed on any of the stock exchanges globally, they are banking on the factor, or they were banking on the factor of trademarking. I have been very vocal about this aspect for last couple of months, that trademarking is just the iota of worth. It is not the intellectual property rights. Let's understand that little deeper, because what is important is the trade secret. And if you're able to keep the trade secret and then develop anything and everything, even if you don't have a trademark, at the instance, that is actually protected under the copyrights. What is important is the contracts, the agreements, and particularly don't put all the clauses in one particular agreement, have different contracts. The title of the agreement itself should be very clear in terms of what is expected between the parties who are involved in that particular agreement. It's important from the point of view to understand this aspect, because a lot can be done in the smart contracts. And once a lot can be done in the smart contracts, there's something called as DAO, that is decentralized autonomous organizations, which are looking into the internet or www data set and coding stuff in the online world to negate the impact of whatever is happening in the offline world. At any given point of time, whatever idea you have, in whatever capacity, whether you're a student, whether you are enrolled in something, whether you are working for an enterprise, I would say if you really want to file a patent, just go with it. Honestly, I would not do it yourself DIY kind of a kit. I don't recommend that. Rather, there's something called as ready to file kind of stuff, where you just tell the authority or the person or the company or the law firm or the people who are representing you before any of the patent offices that, hey, I have ready to file wrapper, or what would the cost to just the representation cost and stuff, and focus on the uh, gaining and gauging attention. I am not a very big fan of at the cost of acquisition, because right now, if you're working with data, you don't need that cost of acquisition, but you need real input data. So let me just go a little bit in deep in terms of the data set where input data in any of the capacities is wrong, and that is where the candidate who is coming online needs to provide the real data set with the the documentation wherever it can be, because a lot of operators, particularly in the operation of what India is all about, the same address is different on Aadhaar, the same address is different on passport, the same address is different on voter ID card. The reason is simple, because different governments were working perhaps to gain something out of the future. They started building the blocks, particularly in terms of these verses and all which we are seeing right now. These were orchestrated way back, maybe 25, 30 years back, or maybe more. I'm not getting into the real data set, but I'm just giving you the landscape of what is happening and how it should be working out. Because when the data set itself is wrong, the input data is wrong, you do whatever. I mean, you do whatever you can in best of the capacity, put best of the equations. That error, that marginal error, once it is compounded, the result is disaster. And that's what the result we are seeing today. All the results are disaster utilizing the data set which started to be taken into account, particularly as an input data. Perhaps if I have to go back, I'll start taking the data set from maybe 1989. From 1989 till date, and particularly lockdown was the time to perhaps that 2020 time zone, after 1st of April 2020, um, to amend the data set in terms of providing the right data set, which was never provided. Instead of that, misuse and infringement happened rampantly. And because of that rampant infringement, the international authorities took cognizance of it. And we are seeing what we are seeing in the current capacity, because even if patent is not filed, it is protected under copyright. Although EU has a different opinion on this topic, but still, whatever you develop, it is your own copyright, and it is up to the party how to prove that. But once it is created, it is your own, and once it is your own, if somebody is copying and not giving you that due credit, then again the input data set is wrong. So actually, most of the books which are being written right now, every third or fourth person is becoming an author, whether it's a child. Oh my gosh, can you believe 8-year, 9-year old kids are publishing books, and their wordings and everything is like, do they even know what they're writing? It's so much LLM model which is being fed to the minds of these young creatures, and that is also creating havoc. So at at one instance, we need to sanitize the data of the internet. At the other instance, we need to sensitize people about IP, that is the internet protocols, in terms of how the communication works, because intellectual property for the longest time has lost its value. Stating the fact, I think I talked about this example little few hours back. So this is a well-renowned brand which is Thumbs Up, and they have this QR kind of a code, not QR code, but they have these codes. I'll just, okay, this is one code, this is second code, and this code, when you feed to the data set of what they are saying and you follow the process, it says this code is already utilized. That means even though the codes are being generated, these are being utilized because the user or the candidate has no cognizance, because they don't even read the labels. Most of the people, even they are in the educated bracket or an educated bracket or so-called educated bracket, the deficiency of understanding is so real that that data set is being utilized to develop something else. So this is chaos of another order. So coming back to the path breaking understanding, how to file a patent of an idea, whatever you have, pen it down. um, if you go through the process, it's a costly process. If you don't have fiat currency, if you don't have money, just go to the patent office, file it, and just appease yourself and saying that, hey, I'm an inventor. But that doesn't mean that whatever you have done has any value until unless that has use case studies. Anything and everything needs to have use case studies, whether you talk about apparatus, whether you talk about whatever. And it is better if you're copying someone, you give them due credit and then develop your stuff. What will work 25 and beyond is creating the pools of the talent pool has to be created, and we are in a gig economy. Nothing more, nothing less. This is what the new dictum is all about, at least from the understanding of what I have in my personal capacity. um, Thank you for watching out this. If you have questions, you can definitely DM us on LinkedIn, and somebody from the team will report back.